What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a great week so far. Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, bringing you a bonus review episode this week. There won't be a full episode of the Genre of Your Life podcast this week. I'll be going to an event on Thursday, but have no fear. The crew and I will be back next Friday, giving you a full episode of the show. In the meantime, I wanted to put out this bonus episode. This week, I'll be reviewing Wes Anderson's next movie, Asteroid City, as well as Netflix's new season, season number 6 of Black Mirror. Two projects that I'm very eager to review on the show. In the meantime, guys, as always, you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. While you're there, hit that follow, subscribe button. Leave a review and rating. It helps us out, helps the show out tremendously. As always, guys, thank you so much for your support. It's going to be a huge summer of movies, new shows coming out too. So having that follow on for you guys on your favorite podcast platform will I'll let you know we have a new episode out every week. I'll be putting out more bonus episodes as well. Again, we have Indiana Jones coming up. We have Barbie, Oppenheimer, No Hard Feelings. So much coming out this summer. To me, a good summer of movies. Mission Impossible is coming out too. So a very fun summer packed full of movies and new shows to review for you all. But yeah, guys, let's get into it. So I've been lucky enough to go to a screening of Wes Anderson's next film, which is Asteroid City, which is I think hit theaters New York and LA last weekend, but we'll hit theaters nationwide this Friday. Wes Anderson and I have had a weird history. I love some of his movies, and some I just don't care for at all. His style is very interesting. I think all directors have a style, like Tarantino and Christopher Nolan. I think Jordan Peele now, and I think Greta Gerwig now has a style as well. But Anderson really has a very unique kind of style to him. It's all steady cam. It's all like that. Shots are going left and right, up and down, or zooming in. It's very interesting. But as a kid, I remember watching. As a kid, I'm thinking, oh man, in high school or middle school, I remember watching Life Aquatic with my dad. And I'm a big Bill Murray fan, so it was, and Owen Wilson fan. So it was always fun seeing them kind of pop up and things together. So I kind of knew who Anderson was as a filmmaker, growing up. But it wasn't until maybe high school I remember seeing Moonrise Kingdom for the first time, and I was like, it's okay. I remember all my friends were like, movies like, this is genius, guys, this is amazing, and I was like, it didn't really do it for me. Love the actors, but it wasn't for me. But I remember loving Mr. Fox as a kid and an adult too. I think that movie is hilarious. I think that's probably some of the best writing from Wes Anderson and just like animation in general. Great script, great storytelling, great voice acting from George Clooney, Meryl Streep, and Jason Schwartzman, Bill Murray. The list goes on and on. I love that movie so much. That's probably why I remember seeing Isle of Dogs at a screening in college that AEC was putting on, and I loved Isle of Dogs. I mean, if you're a dog lover like I am, it's a love letter to dogs and why we love dogs and kind of stories that they go on if we were to ban them out to an island of their own. And again, great voice acting, great storytelling, great script writing, great dialogue from Anderson. And the animation is, I'm a big stop motion animation appreciator and lover. So love this style of animation, love that style of animation for sure. Again, love the voice acting from Bryan Cranston to everyone in that movie, Courtney B. Vance, Edward Norton, to again Bill Murray, to Jeff Goldblum. It's a great talent in that film. So going into this, I was very excited because I love that he said it in the Phoenix, kind of like the Arizona kind of vibe to it. I mean, it's a fake city, Asteroid City, but I think it's his next movie that came. I think French Dispatch came out a year or two ago, and I was not a fan of that movie, to be honest with you. I thought again, hot take. I'm not a big Timothy Chalamet fan personally, so I thought it was kind of distracting seeing him. I think only he can carry a movie, but the storyline didn't do it for me at all. I was kind of checked out. I was like, again, filmed very well, great acting, except for Timothy Chalamet, if you ask me, but it just didn't do it for me as a fan. I think I was like, I was on a big high of the movie before that, which was Isle of Dogs, which again I love, top 10 of that year of 2018 for me. But this is doing it for me. So this one I was excited because I love the cast from Tom Hanks, Scarlett Johansson, Jason Schwartzman, Steve Carell, Liev Schreiber, Jeffrey Wright. This list goes on and on and on. Fantastic. So I was looking forward to this one. Skeptical, but like I said, it's like a fake city. It has a kind of Arizona vibe to it. And if you know, for our listeners, our show is mostly set in Arizona. We record in Arizona. I'm located in Arizona, so is Nick. So we kind of, it's very kind of like hits home for us in many ways. So with that said, he's been a hit or miss for me as a filmmaker. His movies the past 20 years, as my life, to be honest. But this, to me, I think definitely it was on my radar for sure to see this summer. So, um, starting with the pros, I love how in all of his movies too, whether I like him or not, he knows how to utilize his cast very well. He knows how to get good performances out of everyone, whether it's Scarlett Johansson, whether it's a Tom Hanks, whether it's a Bill Murray or Edward Norton, or his frequent collaborators. He knows how to get a good performance out of all his actors, no matter what. And he knows how to utilize them very well. That like, oh yeah, we didn't see this person until later on. We kind of forgot about him or her. No, he does a good job of literally bringing all his cast in and he uses them very well to their talent and to their performances. As I mentioned, I love the Arizona setting. Someone who moved to Arizona back, almost 7 years ago. I love that. Like, it's kind of like a love letter to Arizona, the Grand Canyon in like the 50s. Kind of just that style of kind of like back then it was kind of like a very kind of just like all canyons and desert and cacti and kind of UFO and aliens, conspiracy in the desert. But yeah, I love that. Love the location. For me too, I think what is best in this movie too, compared to other movies, is that I love the singular setting in films, but especially this one, that I love how it's a very tight script, it's a very singular setting movie because it's all set in this fiction, this fake city with these certain group of characters that we're not getting introduced to a lot more characters as we are. I mean, to a point we are, but I'll get to that later. But it's a very good job of keeping all these characters in a very singular spot, which is again Asteroid City. Um, and sometimes it works in other films, but I think with his movies, he knows how to with kind of Grand Budapest Hotel, or again kind of like Isle of Dogs to a degree, or Life Aquatic, when he has his movies set in one setting, it's very you can see the performances, you can see good performances out of these actors, and his direction because he's really bringing something out of it because the setting for sure plays a place in all his movies, whether it's the hotel in Grand Budapest or the ship in Life Aquatic. This is the Asteroid City. It's the settings are characters of his own movie, which I do appreciate it when he films more on the focus of that. Um, and again, this for the most part, the script is very tight. It's very again single on the focus, but we'll get more to that during the episode. I think what he does good too is he blends new actors very well. I think Maya Hawke is the new actress because of what we've seen her in Stranger Things and like in the last Tarantino movie, Hollywood. But he knows how to blend new actors with um, recognizable actors like a Tom Hanks, like a Colin Farrell, with a Steve Carell, with Scarlett Johansson, Jason Schwartzman, Liev Schreiber. List goes on and on. And I love that he kind of blends them very well together. That like they can hold their own with these legends of these talents who've been acting for many years, or in a lot of his other movies. He again, like I said, big shout out to Maya Hawke. I for sure think that Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman, they carried this movie. Their performances are super strong. I'm a fan of both of them ever since I was a kid. But in this movie, especially, both Schwartzman and Johansson had to carry this movie in a certain way that I don't want to spoil for you all. But it's very interesting to see them go back and forth and seeing from their different perspectives. But when they come together at certain points, it's very fascinating. And like I said, I love Jason Schwartzman as an actor. I think he's very underrated. I love him stuff like Funny People. His voice acting in last Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was awesome. Again, I know he's buddies with I love him Scott Pilgrim too as the villain. He's a very fun actor to watch because he brings something kind of quirky, unique with every performance. But yeah, he's lifelong friends with Wes Anderson too. But in this movie, he kind of for sure kind of brings something kind of different, which I like about it because, like I said, he carries the movie on his own as the character and what he's going through with his crisis with his family and his father-in-law played by Tom Hanks. I don't know, it works for me. I love him as an actor, so it was really fun to see him kind of just like bring something again unique and quirky to this role as well. Um, I appreciate the fact that he works with all actors that we haven't seen in a while. Like, I think it's very easy for actors to kind of like go away and then come back later on in their career or like they say consistent forever. But in this movie especially, seeing Matt Dillon, who again I love his brother from Entourage, Kevin Dillon, but I remember watching Matt Dillon and stuff like Herbie Fully Loaded and Crash and Takers, but like something about Mary. So I've been around. I watched this guy a lot as my childhood, my teenage years, my adult life. So I give Anderson a lot of props for bringing Matt Dillon back, and also kind of focusing on his character at certain times. But it's fun to see people we haven't seen in a while, like, oh yeah, him, where's he been? And again, I think it's to his credit, both to Matt Dillon as Wes Anderson's credit, is that they're able to blend together their kind of style, but they're able to bring back performances that you haven't seen in a while from certain actors, and I love that about it. Um, Again, I haven't seen Matt Dillon in a theatrical movie, well, a mainstream theatrical movie in a long time, or um, Rupert Friend or Liev Schreiber. Again, I think Liev Schreiber more stuff recently, but Rupert as well. I haven't seen them in a lot. I've seen him in a lot of stuff recently, but it is again refreshing to see these actors who I once watched a lot of, seeing them come back into like a big, but not big budget, but like mainstream theatrical movie. There's some very underrated actors who have multiple performances, so like that. Wes kind of casted them and their talents because again he's able to get really solid performances out of all of them, and they're so much fun to watch. And because they're all bringing something different to the movie, it's not the same kind of cookie cutter performance. It's they're all doing their own differently. They'll bring some kind of uniqueness and quirkiness and charm to their performances. Which again, I think it's props to the actors, but also props to Wes Anderson for kind of bringing them out of these actors. Um, you know, I tell you what, see, I think see this a lot in interviews, and you hear this a lot in directors' commentaries on DVDs and iTunes extras, that a lot of filmmakers have stated that they have trouble working with child actors or kid actors, because a lot of them are, again, they're just this is work for them, and a lot of them are kind of still thinking developing. They're still kind of like not they're being on a big set with all these different people, a lot of things, a lot of sets, a lot of things are moving. But I think even for a movie that I didn't care for much, which is Moonrise Kingdom, uh, Wes Anderson as a director knows how to direct with child actors, and there's a lot of child actors in this movie, and I really do think that he's able to like use them and utilize them very, very well. That I feel like other filmmakers can't really get a hold of, or don't know how to direct child actors. But again, I think I never had a problem with Wes Anderson kind of directing child actors, kid actors, because he really knows how to get good performances out of them and utilize them into the script and the storyline, where it's like, oh man, these kids are so annoying. They're so like, come on, get over it. But no, I think he really knows how to get performances out of everyone, including child actors, and it's very important. It's really interesting to see that. And I said I've heard so many podcasts and commentaries of directors like, oh man, working with kids was the worst. Working with animals is the worst. Working with younger children is the worst because they're not focused. Whatever. No, I think that Anderson for sure has a grip of directing child actors and knowing how to teach them certain cues, certain skills, hitting their mark, hitting their I remember the dialogue, I remember these certain scenes. So I give him a lot of props in the world for doing that. Um, it's very obvious in a lot of his, again, movies that, like I said, a lot of filmmakers don't know how to do that. Um, I want to give a shout out to newcomer Jake Ryan, who plays Woodrow, the son of Jason Schwartzman's character, who is like kind of like the main kid of this summer, kind of this like science kind of government science program camp. With all these all kind of like not show and tell, but like science, like very high end science fair. And not only does he look like Jason Schwartzman, but like he mimics Jason Schwartzman a lot of like different of like previous movies that he's been in, and it's very fun to watch that. Wow, he's not really kind of like impersonating him, but he has the thing down of what Schwartzman is good at, like kind of being right, like kind of quirky guy, like nerdy kind of guy. But this actor, I said Jake Ryan, he has it down, and it was fun for him to watch because it's kind of like seeing like a Star Wars Born moment with like, oh yeah, like he's he's a kind of shy, kind of closed off guy, doing a lot with his family as well, and he's trying to get this scholarship through this science program in Asteroid City, and man, it's really fun to watch because, like I said, I think Anderson knows how to get a performance out of him, but the way he interacts with other kids in the science program or with his dad, played by Jason Schwartzman, it's really fun to watch, and it's really kind of like it's heartwarming at times of like, oh yeah, I can see them as father and son for sure, and it's very believable that his relationship with his dad, and he wants to become this again prodigy in science. So again, I love that this him as an actor, but Anderson knows how to capture the geeky adolescence of science in the 50s, and that was a big high for me. And you know what? Multiple times on other shows, other podcast episodes, was that I had to give Wes Anderson all the props in the world for really kind of capturing and really creating original IP. He continues to make IP, original stories, new stories. Some of them might blend together for me personally, but except for Mr. Fox and maybe a few other things, I really give him credit for really creating new original movies every time he makes something. And it's, again, we live in a world of just constant superhero or franchises and IPs and reboots, remakes, whatever. But no, I watching this movie, that it was really refreshing to see original movie. Yes, and his style. It's said it's I've seen so much stuff. It's already mid June, and I'm seeing so much of big franchises and other spin-offs and sequels, whatever. It's just fun to see something new and fresh from a filmmaker who knows how to make original content. And it's like I said, I won't love all his movies. I know that, but it just again, it was refreshing to see this when we live in the era of constant reboots and remakes and sequels, stuff like that. Um, but again, in the summer we have, again too, he's making an original movie in the summer too, and I feel like we don't have that a lot as much anymore. I think maybe past couple of years, it's been summer of like remakes and sequels and reboots and this spinoff. But I love seeing original IP, original some movies in the summer because it reminds you of like why we go to the movies in the summer, why we go to like these big movies, why we go to the movies in summer to escape the heat, or bring your friends, bring your family, and I give him all the props in the world for kind of bringing that back and kind of bringing the movie out during this time, during the summer, because summer full of blockbusters and sequels and reboots, remakes. It's really fun to see an original movie from a tour from a very talented filmmaker. Um, his writing in this for sure. His writing in this kind of reminded me almost of like the Coen brothers in a way. And it's very kind of again, it's kind of hard to compare both, but the Coen brothers have this first kind of like not dry humor. I for sure Anderson knows how to do this dry humor kind of thing, but it really does. This his writing for sure have more of like a kind of like a "Oh Brother Where Art Thou" kind of vibe, or Buster Scruggs, or kind of a Hail Caesar kind of vibe, where or even Raising Arizona for sure. I think Raising Arizona and "Oh Brother Where Art Thou" are two very similar writing tones. That's not so much like story wise, but like in dialogue wise, that I feel like Anderson for sure kind of like um, brings it to his own in this movie. For again, I saw a lot of instances of Raising Arizona or Oh Brother Where Art Thou, a little bit of Fargo in a way, but it for sure reminded me of those kind of work. They're like, oh yeah, this is like again these guys who are pros at writing dialogue and writing these characters. Even had some moments of Tarantino vibe to it. Not so much of like violence and like profanity, but some of the humor, some of like kind of the situations that they're kind of going through reminded me of Tarantino a bit, not to a full extent, but for sure, Coen Brothers. There's a kind of rhythm to it. I know these filmmakers have their own rhythm to it. Like I said, with like a Coen, like Tarantino, uh, Scorsese, Spielberg, Nolan. They had their own rhythm to their own filmmaking and storytelling and dialogue. But I love that I haven't seen a Wes Anderson kind of like it's not really a full sci-fi genre movie, but this one for sure had, I think, the most sci-fi out of all his movies, if not the first. So I love that kind of dabbling into sci-fi in a way with this movie in the genre. Um, for an hour and 45-minute movie, it has a solid pace. Again, you heard me in the show before. I'm very big on pace and how does the movie flow? Is it a good pace to it? Is it can I feel dragging in parts? No, I think for an hour 45, this movie, hour 45, I think it drags to in certain points, but not a point where I'm like, oh, eye roll, let's get on with it. Come on now. No, I never felt that whatsoever. And I think he's very good at telling the story in an hour 45 runtime and not feeling like, oh man, I want more or that wasn't enough. It's a very good compact runtime of like, here's my story, here's what happens, here's the characters, boom. So yeah, when I'm big on pace, this movie for sure has a good pace that I'm like, wow, I would watch this again and I feel like, oh, let's get on with it, guys. Okay, this part again. No, I pace never bothered me whatsoever. Without giving much away, there's Bryan Cranston plays this character. It's very interesting. His performance is very interesting. So I don't want to give too much away of who he plays. But he plays like a narrator type of character, and whenever he was on, there were certain points that had me cracking out loud. Like I was like laughing out loud hysterically, and I'm like, that's hilarious. Again, I'm a big Bryan Cranston fan. I grew up with this guy watching, Malcolm in the Middle, and obviously, Breaking Bad is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. But he's very good at humor, and I wish that we saw more comedic stuff from him. I mean, I wouldn't say this is the best example, but in Why Him, not the best example, I know. There's some funny moments to that movie with him, but man, I really do miss seeing him in like comedies because he's a fantastic actor, And when he has some like, funny jokes or funny kind of like moments or quirks, whatever, they had me cracking out loud in this movie. I really, really was very impressed with his performance. But yeah, I don't want to give much away. But like, again, he plays like the narrator of the movie, but he's a different kind of narrator where it's like, again, I don't want to spoil too much. Being you'll see, you'll know, but it's a very unique way of what Wes did of his character of taking on the narrator um, character. But again, it's different. But like I said, he really, I wish, again, I know he worked with them in Isle of Dogs voice acting, but I really do hope that Wes kind of brings him in more movies going forward because he's a fantastic actor, and I think Wes's style in this movie especially, and of Isle of Dogs, just match Bryan Cranston to a T and match very well. So I was very impressed with both of them, and I'm hoping to see more of a collaboration between the two of them because it was really funny seeing him on screen and seeing some of his moments. At the same time, too, I like that it's very meta at times. Without giving too much away, that it, it's it's meta and there's a lot of inside jokes that once you kind of like if you're following along well, you're kind of like in the beginning of the movie too. There's a lot of inside jokes that kind of pay off for sure throughout the movie or at the end. But again, I love kind of meta humor, and this movie for sure had meta humor that worked for me. That can have me laughing out loud. But now, the moment I'm dreading is the cons. Like I said, without spoiling it, I'm trying to do my best to walk around spoilers. Within this movie, there's a story within the story that kind of gets distracting at times, where there was something happening and they go cut, and then this other thing was happening, and it gets a little convoluted at times and it becomes a little messy, where it kind of takes away from the other main storyline that was more interesting. He Wes as a filmmaker, as his writing for sure. I mean, he keeps building the story within a story, and for me personally, I didn't feel as interested or invested. Where I was kind of like, no, no, go back to the other story. I was more interested in that. I want to go back to that. Like, let's skip this, go back to that. And I don't like feeling that way in movies or films or even shows too, where I'm like, oh, I was so invested in this. Now you took me out. You're talking about this, and I'm like, no, no, go back to that. So, um, there are a lot of great appearances from big actors that I felt were kind of wasted or thrown away. And it's like, wait, this is a big actor or a big actress. Like, why did you bring them in? Like, they didn't really do anything. And after a while, you're like looking back, like, yeah, why did we never saw that person again, or we never like saw them again, or why are they brought in for that scene or scenes? So they could have casted anyone, but there's a few performances. I won't say who that I'm like, oh yeah, why were they even in that? They were in for like a second, and that was it. I mean, maybe it's because like, oh look, we have so and so in this movie, come see it. Yeah, I just felt like there were very throwaway performances, throwaway kind of characters that I wish they utilized in a bit more or in a different way. Like I said, he did the same thing, kind of French Dispatch, where I saw that on HBO when it came out. I felt lost, and I don't like feeling lost, or if I'm watching if I'm like kind of watching a lecture or like being in a class environment, and the story within a story that I'm talking about made me feel that like I felt kind of lost. I felt kind of like, am I taking notes? Am I supposed to be taking like notes on this scene, or kind of like is gonna be important later? And me personally, I felt like some of those scenes didn't even have a payoff or didn't feel like needed or earned later on in the movie. So I think that was definitely the big con for me. Yeah, he doesn't go full French Dispatch for me personally, but there are moments where it reminded me of that. I kind of got checked out, where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of checked out now. What's gonna happen next? But I think he's a good job of bringing me back into the certain parts I wanted to see more of, or the certain storylines I want to see more of, because, like I said, I was more interested in that, more involved in those storylines, these certain characters. So, yeah, that to me is kind of like the big con. Um, even some of his returning actors that like he's worked with for all his movies and all his career, they don't have much to do, or they don't feel as valid as they should have, or necessarily fit the overall story. Like I said before, some of these characters, some of the actors could have been replaced with like either new actors or something that like, okay, that's cool, they're there, but he is a big emphasis on certain actors, and I'm like, yeah, or characters. I'm like, yeah, this could have been anybody. This could have been, the mailman. This could have been this person. This could have been a new actor or new actress. But it just doesn't really fit the overall storyline. And I was like, I wish they use them more because I want to see more of their interaction with this actor or this actor or this actress. So that to me, I think was a big pro of like he didn't utilize these characters, so didn't utilize some of these actors to their characters to their full extent of like, wow, these are well recognizable actors, award winning actors. He kind of just like put them to the side, and it was like, they're there, that's it. So along with the story within the story, that was also kind of a big con for me. Like I said, I wanted to see more of them. Maybe he'll bring them back for other projects down the road, and I'll definitely be there day one. But at the same time, yeah, it just didn't work for me. And again, I praise Bryan Cranston. I'll praise Lee Schreiber. Lee Schreiber to me had some of the funniest scenes that cracked me up. I feel like in some scenes that I was laughing the most, more than anyone in the theater, where they were like, "What's he laughing at?" Because I really did laugh at some things that no one else laughed or no one else caught. And again, Lee Schreiber has these few scenes the with his son that just had me in tears, had me in stitches, that made me laugh out loud more than I laughed in a while. So again, I praise Bryan Cranston a lot, but now Lee Schreiber to me for sure stood out a lot in the humor and some of like the situations because it cracked me up. Um, but at the same time, all the jokes land, and as always, Wes's dry humor has always worked for me. Um, and I've said this multiple times in many other podcasts and in other discussions that I think sometimes his humor works even better in animation, like Isle of Dogs and Mr. Fox, because his style of humor for sure. Um, I think his humor and his style of animation kind of support each other and go hand in hand a lot. We're like, oh, this works so much better. Like if Mr. Fox was a live action movie or like a human story, I'd have been like, this is weird. Or Isle of Dogs too, because it's animals, because it's animation. It kind of enhances the story, and it kind of enhances the humor a lot too. Where I'm like, oh, this works so much better. Where again, like I said, at Moonrise Kingdom didn't really work for me. Um, Other projects too, where I'm like, yeah, this was a miss. But I do think that his animation is his strongest. Again, me personally, as a fan of him and as a fan of filmmaking, that's where I think his humor animation really kind of like blend the best. But I do think this and his humor in this movie for sure worked a lot more than French Dispatch, Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Budapest Hotel, and other movies where I'm like, okay, this jokes made me laugh out loud and hard. But yeah, like I said, again, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I do love some of his work. Like I said, Mr. Fox, Bottle Rocket, A Life Aquatic, Royal Tenenbaums, Isle Dogs, Mr. Fox. So this for sure would be way high on the list of movies of his career and his filmography. As me as a critic, as a fan of his, as a sort of fan of his work. But I'm giving it right now. I would give it a 7.5 out of, or 8 out of 10. I think it's worth seeing in theaters. If you live in Arizona, especially in Phoenix, it's for sure a love letter, kind of homage to Phoenix and Arizona, the state of Arizona, and the kind of Grand Canyon. Yeah, that was kind of one of the biggest pros for me. So as well as some of the humor. So if you're looking for a fun movie, you kind of escape the franchises, the big blockbusters. Listen, I love those movies too. I do. But this for sure is kind of like a breath of fresh air of a summer filled of back to back blockbusters and franchises. So definitely worth seeing in theaters. I would pay full price, 100%. Because I definitely would give it again teetering between 7.5 and an 8. But I really enjoyed it a lot. Again, I said I would first put it up there with Isle of Dogs, Life Aquatic, and Mr. Fox. So yeah, guys, that's my review for Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, which is theaters nationwide this Friday. All right, now getting into the TV review portion of this show. Um, I was not the biggest fan of Black Mirror at first. I think in college I was introduced to it during a film class, and I was like, it was the first episode where I don't want to spoil much, but like a prime minister and an animal have to do something, and I was like, what the hell is this show? I wasn't a Twilight Zone fan growing up either, or as a teenager, and I was like, this is not for me. But I think I watched more of it. I want to say maybe before COVID or maybe during COVID. And someone said, "Hey, you ever see the Star Trek version of Black Mirror episode?" I was like, "Star Trek Black Mirror." I said, "What?" They said, "Yeah, if you're not really a Black Mirror fan, try this episode." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Wow. I remember watching it and I was like, "Ooh, wow, I am hooked." They have more of these because I was so amazed. I was so impressed by the storytelling, the acting, the just kind of like the unsettling nature of it all, the situation that was going on in that episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, I felt disturbed in ways where I was like, Oh my God! But also is a fan of Star Trek. My dad's a big Star Trek fan, so I grew up on watching some of the Next Generation and loving the J.J. Abrams movies. Um, the first two especially. The third one's fine too, but yeah, growing up, that I was like, whoa, this is a very well made, quote unquote, not Star Trek, but it is kind of Star Trek kind of vibe. And Jesse Plemons, who I love as an actor, ever since Like Mike when I was a kid, it showed this. The episode just really stuck with me, where I was like, I wanted to watch some more. And yeah, I think it was during COVID or maybe right before, but I was hooked. I was like, I want to watch more of it. So I remember like watching a lot of more episodes, and I was like, wow, this is really great. And I think that was all season 4 too, where I was like, wow, this is a good season. So I kind of went back to all the seasons, whatever, early on before Netflix acquired it, and other. I think Netflix acquired it, way after it came out, but hooked. However, I don't think the last season 5, was all that great. It was three long episodes, and to me, I was like, yeah, this didn't work for me. I think again, I won't spoil anything if you've seen the show before, if you've seen the episode with Anthony Mackie and Yahya Abdul Mateen II, who again I love both those guys as actors, two of my favorite actors working today. That one kind of stuck with me in a way where I was like, oh, this is not what I expected. I think my friend spoiled it for me. I was like, oh, okay. But I was like, whoa, I kind of forgot about this. Oh, and then Smithereens and the one with Miley Cyrus, it just didn't feel like proper Black Mirror episodes. The first one did. Striking Vipers with again Yaya and Anthony. That for sure had definitely a Black Mirror vibe to it. But Smithereens thought was good performances from um, Topher Grace, Damson Idris, and Andrew Scott. But I just didn't. I just kind of just felt just that connection towards it. So season 6, I was coming out like, cool. I'm excited for it. I'm gonna binge it all in the weekend. Let's get on with it. Um, I will say that season 6, has some very high highs and some very low lows. Where I think to me the best episode is Jonah's Awful. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for it if you haven't seen it yet. But Jonah's Awful was a very unique and clever way of like dealing with I want to say the metaverse and streaming services and terms and conditions. And I think it was the way they handled it, the way the message kind of they put out with that. I'm like, yikes! I'm like, I better read the terms and agreements more often now. It's 1,000 pages. I was like, I better read these more. Even have a lawyer look into these. This is a lot. Um, that for sure was kind of the high of the season for me. Probably the best episode. And then Lock Henry, very good episode, good performances. I love that. I'm seeing new talent, seeing new actors, kind of seeing people I haven't recognized before. And I love that. It's just fun seeing new actors, kind of just like, um, you know, in this kind of this anthology series. I'm like, oh, I saw a person in this movie before. Now he's doing this. It's awesome. Or they're doing this. It's great. Kind of like with season 4. What's the girl's name? She was in Barbarian, and I love Barbarian. Um, what was her name? I have it in my notes. Georgina Campbell, who was an episode called "Hang the DJ," which is my favorite Black Mirror episode. And so wait, I just saw her in Barbarian. She was great. It's cool seeing kind of like people who I have seen before, people who I haven't recognized yet. It's just fun seeing kind of like, oh yeah, how they're doing as actors, whatever. Beyond the Sea was for sure, I think, the one that was marketed the most. I saw on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, every social media, where I was like, wow, everyone's talking about this one called Beyond the Sea. And that for sure played more like a movie. It's an hour and a half, definitely the longest episode of the season. And I kind of knew, again, went in nothing, but the hints were kind of like more present to me, where I was like, oh yeah, 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 okay, I can see this happening. And I'm like, and I called the ending. I was like, this is gonna happen. And I said, ugh. And even though I kind of predicted it, it still stuck with me in a very unsettling way, kind of like the Star Trek episode or the Striking Vipers or the other ones where I'm like, ooh, like it stuck with me where I was like, oh man, it ended like that. Ugh, like jeez. Even though I knew it, I was like, oh, it still stuck with me. So I'm thinking about it today. I saw it yesterday. I was like, oh man, like, ugh. But I do think the last two, Maisie Day and Demon 79, good premises, but they don't feel executed enough. They don't feel like, oh, okay. I wasn't as intrigued with those two as I was with Beyond the Sea, Lock Henry, Jonah's Awful, and those for sure kind of more of like a season 5 kind of vibe, where I was like, these feel like good ideas, but they weren't fleshed out enough. And yeah, I think all the performances were great, but they just didn't feel like fully cooked ideas. It's like, okay, this is a part of an idea, and then yeah, it wasn't like fully executed. Oh, they could have done more. They could have expanded more with it. Where again, these are episodes that are hour 20, hour 30 minutes, and I feel like some of the ideas could have expanded it a bit more. Where I was like, oh, I was more intrigued by that. I was more intrigued by this character's decision or this character's decision. But the last, again, Amazing Day and Demon 79 to me just kind of felt like, yeah, it just they didn't hold up as much as the first three did, which again was Jonah's Awful, Lock Henry, and Beyond the Sea, where I wanted more of it. But overall, for sure, an improvement of season 5. Best season though, best batch of episodes. I would put Jonah's Awful for sure up in the uh, favorite episodes of mine that I've seen of this entire series. Again, me personally, Lock Henry and Beyond the Sea. Yeah, the good episodes for sure. Enjoyed them a lot, but I wouldn't put them like, oh, this is like top 5 episodes for sure. But I would put Jones Awful in my top 5. I really enjoyed that episode. I think the performances from Selma Hayek and Annie Murphy were fantastic. They really carried that episode to a T. So, love that episode. It really made you put into perspective of like streaming services in terms of agreements. Yeah. Again, if you're not a fan, if you're not into the show yet, I recommend it. Neither was I at one point. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I got more into it. Now I'm hooked. I even went back and watched the Paramount Plus reboot of Twilight Zone, which is not as good as Black Mirror, if you're asking me. It's kind of trying to do the same thing at the same time. Yeah, I love Jordan Peele, love some of those actors and creators on that show too. But I think Black Mirror kind of just like not reinvented it, but kind of like reinvented the what is Twilight Zone in a way and made it more modern, made it more kind of just like a different take on it to a degree. So I recommend the show. Season 6, definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it yet, if you're a fan of the show too. Yeah, I was, again, very impressed by the filmmaking and the acting and cinematography a lot of this season. So yeah, guys, that will be my 2 reviews of these 2 great projects that I can both recommend. Listen, the summer's gonna be a fun summer. We're going to a lot more screenings this summer. Joel's gonna be covering a lot more movies back in Chicago. You have Nick and I here in Phoenix. A lot more reviews, a lot more coverage for theater reactions. Hopefully, Mo's can do some more coverage and while he's in LA, either at theater reactions or more reviews on the show. Yeah, I hope you've been enjoying this show as much as we've been doing it and recording. It's been every week we have a fun time doing it. We're trying to bring in more guests. So if you know someone or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us at midwayavenueproductions@gmail.com or DM us both on TikTok or Instagram at Midway Avenue Productions, or you can DM my personal Instagram, which is at The Young Jones. Yeah, guys. Again, summer of movies, support your local cinema, support your local theater. It's very important that we see theatrical movies. We're still living in that streaming world. Everything's streaming. Everything's waiting to come to Disney Plus or Peacock or Paramount Plus or Max now or Netflix. Support your local cinema, whether it's a big theater or small theater. Support your movie theaters, because I think we're now in a way where we're kind of post-pandemic where we have an influx of huge movies. I mean, look what we've seen so far. We've seen Fast 10, we saw Little Mermaid, we saw Spider-Verse and The Flash. We have a lot of movies coming out like Joyride and Asteroid City and No Hard Feelings. So it's fun to see a lot of movies coming back. Things that we probably would have seen on streaming during the COVID years or COVID era, or even last year, now are getting full theatrical releases. Again, Indiana Jones is coming out next week. No Hard Feelings is coming out this week. So we have a lot to look forward to. Mission Impossible is coming out. I can't wait for that. Barbie's the big talk of the summer. So go out, see a movie. Yes, popcorn's expensive, I know. Or become an A-list AMC A-list member, or Regal Limited, or wherever your local theater has a little program going on. Support it. It's the theaters are a fun place to see a big movie and be with a great audience and be with the crowd, because I feel like you can't get that at home. I think seeing a movie in a big crowd, in a big theater, big audience, really kind of brings it home for me personally. I think it brings home a lot of people like that. It was fun seeing that in an audience, fun seeing that with a big crowd, laughing, cheering, crying, clapping, whatever. It's just fun. So, yeah, guys, that'll be my bonus episode review, and we will see you next week with a full episode of the Genre of Life podcast, guys. Until then, take care.